Hello, today we're gonna see JavaScript Ajax, one of the hot topics in JavaScripting. So Ajax stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So here the keywords are JavaScript and XML, and of course asynchronous. So JavaScript means the client side, it's the web page. XML is a file or data that is stored in an XML format, which resides on the server side. So it's a communication between the server side, where the XML is located, and the client side, where the JavaScript is running. Remember, JavaScript runs, or the browser runs the JavaScript. And this communication between the server side and the client side is done asynchronously, meaning non-blocking. So JavaScript requests some data from the server, and of course the server is going to take some time to process the request and send the data. There will be some delay. Now, while the server is processing the request from the JavaScript in the client side can do the normal business, can continue doing whatever it was doing earlier. It doesn't have to wait until it receives the data from the server in order to continue. That's the meaning of asynchronous. Now, originally the data that were stored in the server and we used to request it using the Ajax. Originally the data were in XML format, but that has been evolved, and nowadays, even a long time ago, we use Ajax to bring not only XML format but also text like scripts from PHP, for instance, or JSON format. I'm going to explain XML and JSON format and the data format, if you like, in the next lectures. Now, Ajax, two major steps here. Request data from the server, then once you got the data, you're going to manipulate them using the DOM, usually. All right, the step number 2. Now, the object that is of utmost importance here in Ajax is the XML HTTP request. Is a predefined built-in object that most browsers, even the old ones, have. Now, using the XML HTTP request and its API function and methods, we're gonna control and we're gonna send requests and control how our request is gonna be received, and we check them and we display them or process them when we get them in the client side. A very good example of Ajax processing is the Google search, or nowadays most of the search engines. While you are typing, every time you type a character, there will be a feedback, like it's asynchronous, meaning that at the same time you are typing, you get some partial results. So this means every time you press a key, there will be a request sent to the server that is in Google, and the server comes back with the results, and it will update your count page. Let me show you here. Once you type C, you see, guys, this part here hasn't been changed. I didn't refresh, okay, my index file here, because there's the index HTML. Every time I type, it's gonna propose some keywords, it's suggestions. Now, these propositions, if you like, are coming from the server live, okay, and I don't have to wait. You see here, now the page is not being reloaded, or I don't have to send every time I type. I don't have to send a request or refresh or press enter here. It's coming right away, meaning that the browser, the server, of course the server is very fast. Now the server, Google server, will send me data, and the data will be updated only in this region here. Not this, not this, not this. I don't have to refresh. That's the beauty of Ajax, and Ajax was put into the realm of web development by Google in 2005. So Ajax allows web pages to be updated in a non-blocking, means asynchronously, by communicating or exchanging data between the server behind the scenes. This means, as I showed you just now, the part of the count web page is uploaded without the need of refreshing or requesting the same page. Now we're going to work with some examples here to show you the how Ajax works in real life. So the steps are: you type for Ajax to perform or to execute, you have to there must be an event. So in an example I gave you earlier, it was pressing the key, okay, key release or key up. It could be also page loaded or button clicked. Then once that event happened, you're gonna create an object out of XML HTTP request object. Then you're gonna open a communication and send your request. Your request that is sent from your client side will say, give me data that is stored in some file. So you have to give the URL of the file, the XML file for instance, or any other file as a matter of fact, that is located in the server. You have to give the path as well. And you're gonna say, give me this data in a non-blocking way, means asynchronously. And you're gonna say also, I am requesting this data in using a post method or get method. Remember the forms, guys? Once you send the request, the server will get the request and it will take some time, maybe. When I say sometimes, it's going to be milliseconds or microseconds to process it. Then it's going to be sent through the network back to the client. Send the response. This might take milliseconds. And it's going to come to your page, and you as a programmer, you're going to read that response and use that response to update your page accordingly, maybe using a DOM, usually using a DOM. All right, now let's go into an example. I'm going to show you an example here, but before I show you the example, we have to know whatever I was explaining just now. We have methods or API, well-defined API methods or functions that comes along or that belongs to the XML HTTP request object. And I put them here in the order. The very first one is to create or to specify the request we are asking or we are sending to the server. And remember, guys, everything is done in JavaScript, okay, from the server, from the client side. So we have to use the open method or open functions, which specify the parameters of the request. So method can be get or post. URL is the location of the resource you want to fetch from the server. Usually is the file name and file location. Async is here, and user password. These three are optional because asynchronous here parameter is by default true, which is asynchronous, means non-blocking. If you want to make it synchronous, you have to use true, false, which is very rarely used. If I have time or if I remember, I'm going to show you an example of synchronous, which is very, very rarely used because it's going to defy the principle of Ajax itself. We want to be very efficient. We don't want to waste time refreshing or reloading everything. We want to bring only the data that we need, and we put it in some region of the count page. So we don't have to waste time. That's why we have to make it asynchronous. But if you make it synchronous, means your JavaScript has to wait, block everything, stop everything until it receives the data from the server. Now, once we specify this request communication, if you like, we're gonna send it to the server. We can send it with two ways. If you are using here some URL, I'm going to show you an example later on, not in this lecture, but in the coming one, using the string here. And once we do this, we're gonna register an event, or we're gonna listen to an event to happen. And once that event happens, we're gonna act accordingly. And that event is called ready state change, meaning that you're gonna listen to feedback from the server. The server will tell us that I already sent the feedback and you can process it. It's called ready state. And that feedback and others are properties of the XML HTTP request. The ready state, guys, remember? So ready state, we have some values here. I'm going to explain them later on. And the status as well, which is another property of the XML HTTP request. and the status means whether the request has been successful, you got the file back, or the request wasn't successful, the file doesn't exist, remember 404, or it's passworded, so we have many things, okay, forbidden, not found, or successful, the file you requested is good, I'm giving it back to you. Alright, so let's see an example, guys. I'm going to use an example here, and we're going to explain this XML Ajax in a demo. So the file here, the file is in XML, it has many data here, Peter, Ali, Sarah, 18, 19, 28, these are the ages. Now you see it's well formatted file, it's not text file, it's an XML file. More than that, it looks like HTML because it uses tags, but that's another lecture. And we have our HTML file where we have a form here. I could really remove the form just here for the fancy stuff. Now I have two zones here, or two parts of my page. One text area where I'm not gonna change anything, so doesn't change anything here, and another part which I'm gonna update it with Ajax here. So I'm gonna update this text area number 1 with the whole content of my file. All this I'm gonna bring it from the server and updating only this part without touching the rest here. Okay, that's asynchronous request, okay, or asynchronous JavaScript and XML process. So to do this, I'm gonna code a JavaScript. So I'm gonna go here and let's get into it. So the function main, okay, the function main, which is this one here. I could use an anonymous function, but I prefer to use this one for clarity and for some of you to follow properly. Now, once the DOM content has been loaded, we're gonna initiate our work here, so or our JavaScript. So I need this text area, I need the button. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna go here and document dot get element by ID, and in the ID I'm going to use text area 1 and save it in text area var. We're going to do the same thing for the button, because once we click the button, by the way guys, once we click the button we want to change the content of text area 1 by what? Again, by bringing this file from the server. Let's go back here. Now, to this JavaScript. So button is document dot, since I don't have an ID, I'm going to use query selector. Query selector is an input of type equal button. Kind of a revision here. And I'm going to associate to this button an event listener. And once it's clicked, I'm going to use the Ajax way of bringing data. So I'm going to call this my method Ajax text area update. That's the name, guys. Again, don't do this. It's not calling it. It's associating this name with the click of this button. It's just event registration. Now I'm going to define my function. And in this function, this is what I'm going to code my Ajax. So I need my object var XML HTTP obj. This is the very first thing here I do. So XML HTTP request. This is the object I'm going to create. Alright, once I create this object, I'm going to specify. So I'm going to open the channel, communication channel if you like, or specify the parameters of my request. So here I am from the client, okay, because this is going to run on the browser, go to this guy here, all right, and fetch it. So where was I? In the script here. So the very first one is the sending method, or sending the request method. So either it's a post or a get. I'm going to start with the get. The second one is the URL, okay, the location of my resource, which is the file here. So it could be HTTP, the name of the domain /folder/file. but here it's in the same here, so it's I'm gonna same folder, so I'm gonna put here, this is the relative path, so my file.xml. The third one is optional and it's true by default, okay, and which means asynchronous. If I do false, it's gonna be synchronous, but this is not good, guys. Synchronous means you block everything until you get an answer from the server. Then your JavaScript can continue or resume its execution. So I open, once I specify this request, I'm gonna send the request. This is really sending the request. So sending the request. Then what do? I'm gonna register XML. So the first, it's always this way, guys. XML object. So here we're gonna register. So add event listener for a special event. The special event is called ready state change. This means our JavaScript will listen to the ready state parameter. Has it been changed or not? So whenever it has, or if it's changed, or the ready state has changed, we're gonna trap it or catch it and do whatever logic we want to do. So I'm gonna associate to this an anonymous function. So see anonymous function here, guys. I'm gonna put it down here. I could use a name function, and in this function here, I'm gonna test this ready state. Now let's go back to the slides. Now the methods here, remember, it's an open, specify the request, send the actual request. Now on ready state change is a function here, by the way, and we use on. Remember the on, or we can use the event itself, the ready state. So starting from here, the ready state change. So you can use either ways. Now this ready state change event, we're gonna listen to these properties: ready state and status. Ready state, we have 0 if the request is not initialized, 1 when the server connects, 2 when the server receive our request, 3 the progress, and 4 is when the server has done or has finished performing or processing the user request. The status is 200 if the request is successful, the file is found, and the data is the nice or whatever data you requested is back to you, to the page. 403 if you made a request but the file or the data is forbidden. Okay, maybe authentication problem. 404 if you requested the wrong file, maybe wrong file name, it's not found. Okay, so we're gonna play with this too, ready state and status. So here we're gonna check if two things: if ready data is ready and it was success. So what do we do? So if this two, we're gonna update our text area. So text area here dot value receives what? We're gonna put what there? We're gonna really put whatever the user, the XML HTTP request give us back, and whatever the XML HTTP request is carrying as data, it will put it in this response text or response XML. All right, so I'm gonna go there and put this. So it's gonna be dot response XML. We could have use response text, or we could have used response. Now ready, of course, not ready. We're gonna use dot ready state. It's a keyword, it's a property of the XML HTTP request, and the success is, of course, also the famous number 200. So status is equal to 200, which means okay. So ready and okay. Ready means received, okay, or sent. Depends where you put yourself. All right, so let's try this one. So I'm gonna go to the browser. I'm using here the local host from the live server demo from the from Atom. No, so the XML file, sorry. Now I'm gonna go to test, and this part won't change once I click this one to be updated by Ajax. All right, so I'm gonna go to the source and put some. I have an error here. Let's fix the error first. Where is the error? All right, so I'm gonna go. Button is not defined. Line number 5. So I'll go to line number 5. Button is not defined. Type button. Oh yeah, I forgot the quotation here. Alright, so refresh. Hopefully no error. Okay, good. Now let's go through this step by step. Not here, this one. So I'm gonna put toggle point here, one here, and one here. Alright, so what do we do? The moment we click on change content, it's gonna bring data, put them here. So change. So first of all, we create this object out of XML. So once I created it, guys, see it has many attributes and many properties. Ready state is 0. Do you see it? And response nothing, and status is 0. Let's go and check this tree here. So ready state is 0. No request has been done yet. Status is undefined, is 0. Right? And the outcome response text is nil or nothing there, empty string. Alright guys, can you see it? See them again? Ready state and status and response XML and text. Response text and response XML. Alright, now we're gonna create our or specify our file that we want to request and the method, and we're gonna say it's an asynchronous way. Then we're gonna send the request. Oh, it's an error here. It's not response XML. Let me go back to my code here. It should be this. Okay, either use this, guys, the keyword this, or the object itself. All right. Don't know why I put there. This is good. Okay. So save, refresh. Okay, I have to click on the button here. I clicked on the button. Now this object is undefined. Now it's defined. When I click here and send, see what happened here. Now ready state is 1. Ready state is 1 and status is still 0. So what's the meaning of ready state 1? Ready state 1 means the server connection established. Alright, so I'm gonna put this one a little bit here. Now we're gonna listen to this. I'm gonna put my stuff here, and every time see how the ready state changes. So I'm gonna resume. Now see here, guys, ready state is 2 and the state is 200, means success. 2 means what? 2 means received, request received by the server, but it's not processed yet. Alright, now when I go here and continue with the cycle of my Ajax cycle, now I press here on resume, guys, and ready state is 3. Status, of course, is 200. 3 means it's in progress, processing the request. And only when the last cycle, if you like, or step of the cycle, when I resume and the ready state is 4, good, and the status is good. Okay, now see what happened here in the response. Well, let me show you here. XML object dot response. I have the text, the XML, the content. Or I could use response text, which is the same thing. You see guys here, string of character. But if I use XML, it's a very well-defined format. It's an object. Okay, it's not a string, it's an object which I need to parse it. Okay, I need to go through it and extract the data in a very programmatic way. This will be the topic of next lectures when we start XML and JSON. All right. So see what happened here. When I go to source, and when this is for, means ready to be. We already received the data, it's ready, and there was no problem. Now when I do this, I go inside and I'm going to update this part. With what? With response, which is a document. Can you see guys? It's not, because it's an object. I need to really parse it. And you see here, let me finish here. Here it says object XML document, which is really not good. I have to process it. Now to remedy this problem, I'm going to write, or we're going to write a long program, another method, but for the time being, I'm going to remove this and use response or response text to get the whole file. So refresh here to run another time, to be updated by Ajax. Click here and I see my data here. All of it brought from this file, my XML file that is in the server. You see, that's the server and that's the file, the XML file. All right, so we're gonna stop here for the time being, and we're gonna continue with other examples and changing, or I'm gonna investigate other parameters and other situations as well.